I can't help it. I have to move every time.
Yeah, I can't not bob my head to that.
I'm trying hard not to. I can't. I just can't. It's crazy.
That's so funny. Hey, everybody. Welcome to tonight's podcast. I am personally just grateful. That's really the only word I can think of right now. And maybe that's enough because I have two amazing people that have come into my life. Besides Doc, you're amazing too.
I was about
But
to say.
two other amazing people that have come into my life. And I'm really just grateful to have them on to have this discussion. Tonight, we're going to be talking about self care. I'll introduce myself real quick. My name is Jodi Watkins. I am an administrator and profile platform professional with Convene Communities. Really big on mental wellness, health and wellness, and just I've been on this journey for a long time, working with Matt and building out this platform. So we're always grateful for good people to be able to come alongside us and help us out with that. So tonight we have special guests. I know the graphic said I was a special guest, but I'm not. I'm the host.
Don't sell yourself short. You're plenty special.
Okay. All right. I'm the special host. There we go. But tonight we do have two special guests, special in my life, and hopefully they'll be special in your lives as well as you listen to them more. We have Derek Shares. He is a Navy veteran, great friend of mine. I always call him my spiritual brother. Known him for a few years. And we have Dr. Erica Bush. She is a chiropractor, Air Force veteran. Woo woo. And sorry, I had to throw that in there.
Wait a minute. You didn't say anything about being a doctor just a few minutes ago.
Well, she's very humble.
Now, I know you guys are a little bit younger, but have you guys seen the movie Spies Like Us? Doctor, and doctor.
That's funny.
Great movie. You got to see it. I'll be quiet.
No, you're funny. No, but she's got a very special story, and I'm definitely grateful for the connection that I have with her. We've had some good conversations too. But tonight, again, we're going to be talking about self-care, and this is a special topic. I actually had a conversation today with someone, and I wanted to get you guys' feedback on this anyway. So this is perfect. We were having this conversation, and this person told me they didn't feel like they deserved to take care of themselves. And they felt like when they took care of themselves, they weren't being there for the other people that needed them. Now, I was able to give my thoughts on that. But, Derek, I want you to, introduce yourself a little bit more if you want to, and tell everybody what you got going on here in Jacksonville. And then if you can chime in on that, let me know what you think. That word deserve, we talk about that a lot. So.
Absolutely, Jodi. Thank you. And it's a pleasure to be here with you and Erica and Doc. Really, thanks for having me on. So I am a graduate level intern mental health counselor now after retiring from the Navy in 2019.
Whoop, whoop.
I'm Thanks, Doc. I'm medically retired after a fracture in my neck in a few places and going through all the surgeries and the ups and downs that brought myself and my family through. And really, my story is the perfect, really caveat to what you were just talking about as far as how important self-care is. Had I not learned that lesson, I wouldn't be on this podcast tonight. And I also wouldn't be able to be there for the people that I love and support and things like that. So, long story short, retirement in 2019. I thought everything was about physically pushing through my physical injuries, and I totally neglected the mental side for quite a while. Until it really almost became too much. And fortunately, I met with a doctor at Mayo Clinic who was amazing and taught me CBT and really, being a good human and connecting on that level. And he kind of piqued my interest on how important the whole mental health side of. Prior to that, I was the push through guy. I could work from 3 a.m. to 10 p.m. and, put a smile on my face and do it again the next day. And but eventually, you can only. We're all human. We all have limitations, right?
Yeah, definitely. What real quick, I don't want to interrupt you, but just for anybody out there that doesn't know, what is CBT?
Cognitive behavioral therapy. It's probably the most sought out form of mental health counseling or psychotherapy at this time. It actually has unbelievable success rates. Studies show that it can be as helpful, if not more helpful, than medications, and when combined with. But it's essentially helping us. Our brains love patterns. That we create these patterns, and sometimes we don't even realize we've created the pattern. So CBT really helps you to recognize those patterns and then figure out which ones are actually helping us and which ones are maladaptive or irrational. Or, our body, God designed us beautifully in the sense that we have our fight or flight mechanism, right? We have it's talking to us at all times. But sometimes we can get stuck in some loops that aren't so adaptive or even rational. They might even be highly irrational. So CBT teaches you to recognize those patterns, pick them out, and look at ways of changing them, essentially. But that was really, I don't want to, talk as if that there's only one modality that was how my journey started. And since then there's so many things out there. And there's actually a quote I'm not going to quote it exactly, by a psychotherapist who studied under Freud, that said, basically, know all the paradigms, know all the techniques, and then basically scrap that and be one human connecting with another human. And that's how real healing happens. So that's why I'm thankful to be part of this community and podcasting.
Definitely. And we're thankful to have you. Just real quick, because this was a question that came up in my conversation too, is how do you start that journey? Like, how do you start taking care of yourself? And like I said, the whole thing was, if I'm taking care of me, how do I take care of everybody else that needs me? So there's that people pleaser aspect of it too. So what are some things that Derek did to kind of, and even now, like I told this person, I was like, I still do this daily, right? Like I still have to practice these things daily. So, what are some things that you started doing, and what are some things that you still do to implement that self-care into your own life?
So you really hit the nail. Routines are huge. And like I just mentioned, our brains like patterns, and our natural posture for our mental health in our brain is to heal. We don't want to feel incongruent, or we don't, we want to be in a state where we feel whole and complete and one, essentially. And the biggest thing for me personally with that was finding and establishing healthy routines, and then almost doing them to a point that it was almost borderline unhealthy rigidity in those healthy routines, right? It's a process, and it's not always a linear process. So I did find myself
not at all.
Right.
I don't think it's ever linear. I always tell people, like, it's always going to be like this, right? You just hope the line eventually goes like this.
It needs to be trending in that yes. Up and right direction, right? But routines are a huge one, and setting healthy boundaries is another one. A lot of times we're so selfless, our backgrounds, our military experience, where we're not supposed to really think of ourselves. We're definitely not supposed to think of ourselves first, right? Yeah. So now, as retirees, and I work with active duty members still as a mental health counselor in Jacksonville. There's a big Navy. So my specialty, mental health counseling, is first responders, military active duty veterans, because I see these patterns over and over again where we're taught over our careers to essentially, really the right word is destroy our limbic system. our prefrontal, we're supposed to
Mhm.
ignore it. We're supposed to read and react. We're not supposed
Right.
to be hung up in any type of emotional loops, or we're supposed to be mission oriented. And then we retire one day and we take a 5-day TGPS class, and they're like, all right, adios,
Like,
you know?
see ya. I didn't
Yeah,
even get to
go be
take
a
that class,
civilian.
so it was kind of like, what do I do now?
I didn't either. I was between surgeries, so I had to click through one
Uh,
online,
oh my
and
goodness.
but so after my injury, I became a career counselor in the military, and that kind of helped um, my transition into this life, in the sense that just seeing I think the last statistic that I saw and read, hopefully don't get too far off here, but the need for mental health professionals to clients or patients in need, it was a 7,000 to 1 ratio across the United States.
I believe that,
And
though.
I mean, and then I
Believe
read
that.
another statistic today about I believe the number was 90 million Americans currently using SSRIs for mental health. That, like, there's just such a need for this type of stuff that you guys have going
Right.
on right now. That's why I was so eager to, 8 o'clock on a Tuesday, I'm usually, getting ready to
Look, when
wind
Derek
down,
was
but I was
blessed
excited to be
me, I'm
here.
like, yes. Like, well, and Dr.
I
Erica's
don't
got
want
a
to,
lot
I
going
want
on too.
Erica to be.
Yeah, she's got a lot going on too. Thank you for that. I really wanted to kind of hear your perspective, because like I coach, and I give tools on things that I've had to learn along the way, and so I'm always eager to hear what other people have done and do. It is funny how we can take those healthy routines and really overdo it a little bit, because I think sometimes Matt and I have talked about this, and Denise is on here, we talked about this too. My friend Denise, we say the athlete and military mindset is a little bit different, right? Like, whether you were an athlete or if you were both, which I was both, right? And Matt was, and you guys. So when you have that type of mindset, you don't really know how to pull back. Right? And so it's funny, because a lot of us tend to struggle more there than we do in working hard, right? Like, we can work hard all day long. We struggle with finding the healthy boundaries. So Erica, Dr. Erica, have you come on, introduce yourself a little bit, and that way people can kind of know you. But I definitely want to get you to chime in too, because you have a special case, and you still have to implement self-care. That's even more important for you. So I want to let you kind of come on here and talk about that a little bit.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here with all you amazing guys. So thank you. Thank you so much. Yes. So again, I'm Dr. Erica Bush. I'm a chiropractor. I'm an Air Force veteran, medically retired. Went through some trauma in the Air Force, so I'm medically retired. I am an author, and I am a wellness advocate specifically for special needs parents. I'm a special needs parent. I have a 7-year-old daughter that has cerebral palsy. So so mental wellness is huge for me. When I think of mental wellness, I think, hey, it's this harmonious blend, right, of emotional, psychological, and physical well-being, right? And we need all of those elements. So for me, I have gone through a lot in my life. I'm a survivor of domestic violence. That taught me the impact of trauma and, one's mental health. Um, my daughter, she was born prematurely, and we didn't find out till she was 3 years old that she had cerebral palsy. And that was very life-changing for me. Let me backtrack. I went into chiropractic because it's a healing profession. And I believe that, God made the body to heal itself. So I wanted to, be in a profession where I could, be a vessel for people, be that vessel, and help people through, their wellness challenges and things like that. Now, fast forward, my daughter, we found out 3 years ago that, like I said, she has cerebral palsy. And as you guys already said, it's the athlete in us, the military in us, we keep going. What's the problem? How do we fix it? What do we need to do? Right? There's no pause. We just keep going.
We just figure it out, right? We just figure it out.
We just figure it out, right? So I spiraled, so as soon as I found out, I'm like, okay, what do I need to do? Okay, what therapies are needed? Where do we go from here? I was also going through a divorce at the time. So I was spiraling out of control. And it wasn't until 11 o'clock p.m. one night, I texted a friend. I'm like, hey, I need you to come over here. I called 911. I thought I was having a heart attack. And, my blood pressure shot up to 180 over 110. And thank God it wasn't that, but it was major anxiety. It was a panic attack. I was spiraling out of control. And that was an awakening moment for me that I need to check this. My mental wellness is, I need to check this. I am suffering with anxiety. I'm suffering with depression, and I need to take hold of this, because the thing about mental wellness, it extends beyond the individual, right? It extends to the families, it extends to the workplaces, it extends to the communities. So it's not just an individual thing, it impacts everybody. And I knew at that time I had to do something about it. So that was my catalyst for change. And through that catalyst for change, I'm able to implement that in what I do. It gave me more empathy as well, because we're all going through things. And especially like as a special needs parent, like we experience caregiver burnout. And, everybody experiences burnout, And so like I'm able to take my experiences now and my background and really be, really have a holistic approach to mental wellness. Help people, be able to identify those triggers and those stressors and be able to, be an advocate for people who need to find that balance, and recenter. And so that's kind of a little bit about my background.
Yeah, no, that's good. One of the things that it's interesting because I'm listening to you guys and, we've all kind of hit that point. And Derek, you said you retired in 2019. 2019 is when I kind of hit my rock bottom, right? And I just moved back to Jacksonville. And one of the things that I always tell people is I'm like, hey, I don't want you to have to wait until you get to that point. Now, a lot of people are going to, just because that's how we work. I don't think anybody could have told me, I don't think anybody could have told me anything before I hit that point, to be honest. And so when I do meet people, I always tell people, I'm like, I don't judge anybody because I'm the last person that can judge anybody, right? But I think it's interesting how we've all kind of hit that point, and that's how we've been able to work our way, through it. So Erica, what are some things that you implement as far as self-care is concerned? What are some tools that you use?
Well, first of all, I had to learn to set boundaries because I didn't have any. And so, learning to set healthy boundaries and learning to say no, and that it's okay. Also learning to be comfortable saying that it's okay not to be okay, which means that I can seek help now. And I had to overcome that part, because prior to that, I wouldn't have done that. So it's okay to not be okay. It's okay to pick up the phone and ask for help. So, maybe if I can't talk to that family member or that friend, maybe I can go down the street to that church. Maybe I can talk to my trainer. Maybe I can talk to, if I don't have a therapist yet, maybe I can talk to my PCP. Like, it's okay to let someone know you need help. And I think once you overcome that, then that's the first step, right? That we can seek help. So for me, boundaries, asking for help, becoming a really fierce advocate for myself, because I'm the only one that's going to advocate for me. So that's been huge, right? Learning to advocate for yourself. Also, from a spiritual perspective, I had a doctor tell me a few years ago when I went for a checkup that she had just learned the meaning of love thy neighbor as thyself. She just realized that thyself part how important that was. And I think it's the way that it's written. Sometimes we just put more emphasis on love thy neighbor, and then we kind of tend to forget about ourselves. So like that was huge for me. That was like an eye opener because I never really paid attention to that thyself part. And when I knew that that was important, then that was a game changer for me. Yeah. You know, so now I'm able to say that to other people, you know, from a spiritual perspective as well. So those are some of the things, along with, you know, now, of course, I take time to pour into myself because I'm no good to anybody else. I'm not any good to my children, my patients, my friends, my family. I'm no good to anyone. I didn't realize that. I guess, you know, when I came up, it was selfish, you know, to pour into yourself. We can't, at least when, you know, from my environment, you know, nobody advocated for self-care. It wasn't important. It was normal to just pour out all your energy on everyone else, you know? So learning that, hey, wait a minute, I'm important, you know? Yeah. So if I take time, even if it's 10, 15 minutes a day, if I take time to pour into myself, then my cup is full, and then it can overflow, and then I can help other people, and then I have the energy to do that. So learning some of those things have been very important for me. Yeah.
Dr. Erica, you bring up a great point, and it's the fact that we have to relearn. We have to train ourselves because we can't unlearn the negative habits we've already have on board, right? So we have to, and it's not easy. I realize that, and it's very tough. I hit my wall in 2018, and you know, it's as far as you guys well know, in the medical field, we're the last ones to take care of ourselves. We're too busy taking care of everyone else
all the time.
And I hit that wall. And if you would have told me 15 years ago that you know you've got PTSD, this, that, the other, I'd have told you to get bent.
Yeah, exactly.
No way. But you're right. So we have to kind of, and that's what's great about this podcast, is we have to break down that stigma, and we have to do our part to retrain everyone, to let them know that, hey, you got to take care of yourself first, because like you said, you can't take care of anyone else if you're not good to go.
Yeah. And one of the things, like Erica, you mentioned this, so you're, you know, speaking on a more spiritual realm, right? Like, love thy neighbor as yourself. Well, here's the thing that I come in contact with a lot, and it was me too. I didn't love myself. So in all actuality, I can't love anybody because I don't even know how to do that, right? So we have to give ourselves grace, first of all, and understanding that we've all, you know, a lot of us have some trauma that we've dealt with, you know, trust issues, right? Because we're talking about calling upon people, but what if we've had people stab us in the back, right? Now we don't know who to call on. Who can we call on? So I've personally had to learn that, like, okay, first off, I got to learn how to love me, even if sometimes it feels stupid to say it, right? Like, even if sometimes I might not necessarily believe it, I still have to say these things, and I have to reprogram. Like, you know, Derek, you were talking about the routines, right? And I always say our brains, we all know this, right? Our brains are like software programs, and they're just running and running and running. So it takes an act of changing it, right? And I'm not a computer person, but when I talk to computer people, I'm like, you have to recode the software, right? Like you gotta put like a different code in there, right? Like you gotta put something in there, because if not, you're just gonna keep running the same operating systems that you've been running your entire life, because it's programmed, right? So now, you know, it's interesting too. Like I said, I hit my rock bottom in 2019, but I still didn't really ask for help until 2 years later. So that's how stubborn I am. Okay.
We know.
Yeah, I know. Hey, I'm the first one. I will say it like all day long. I am stubborn, but it took me 2 years. And that after that 2 years was when it was just like, okay, now it's time. I really got to ask for help. And that was one of probably the most humbling experiences, is, you know, getting on the phone with the VA and saying, hey, I need mental health, right? Like, and then having to go through that process. And Doc, like you said, somebody had told me, you know, even 10 years ago, I didn't even know what complex PTSD was at that time. and you got PTSD and depression and anxiety, and I would have been like, what are you talking about? This is my life, right? Like, I don't even know what you're talking about. But the biggest thing, and this, I say this a lot too, is that self-awareness piece. All of us have had to go through that journey of becoming more self-aware. And the more self-aware we become now, like Erica, you were saying, the healthy boundaries. I didn't know how to do that because I wasn't aware that I didn't have them, right? So, that's one of the things I think is very important is, just that self-awareness piece. What am I doing? What kind of operating systems am I running? And is this serving me or is it not serving me? And like you said, it impacts the people around you. It impacts, if you're like, I wasn't the coach that I am today a few years ago because I couldn't have been, there's no way. And same with you guys. I know, like, you can't be that person for other people unless you go through this part. So what do you guys think about that? Anybody?
I'll jump in. So somebody mentioned earlier that Derek, you're kind of a gym rat, right? Did I hear that correctly?
That's how we met.
Yeah.
I look at the brain as I do a muscle, right? We go to the gym, we exercise our biceps or our chest or all the muscle groups, but we never exercise our brain. And just like after we get out of the gym after a hard workout, we have to have that rest and recovery time. And we forget that our brain needs that rest and recovery time just as much, if not more so, than our muscle groups do.
That is so true.
That, and I don't exercise mine at
100%.
all.
You're so funny. Well, the military doesn't teach us that either, right? Like, we did. I mean, I was a physical fitness leader, right? Like, nobody ever said mental health leader. Like, there was none of that. It was like push up, you're always doing the physical part. So yeah, it's like that just gets kind of put on the back burner. But we got to put that on the forefront.
And then conversely, I look at it, if someone, say we have just a temporary period of depression, right? It's the same as spraining your ankle. Okay, you got a little injury. Let's rest it. Let's recover it, and then we'll be back to normal, right? We'll be good to go. It's kind of, I try to think of ways to break it down to get away from that whole mental. The word mental really screws people up, and so it brings a negative connotation with it. And if we could somehow find a way to get away from that phrase, that word, then I think we would start to find a lot more success.
Or we just recreate the connotation behind it, right? Like, one of the things that I've had to learn is it's how we speak about things that matters, right? Now, if we can come together as a unit and talk positively, if I can talk positively about mental, right? If we can make that now a more positive word, now if there's thousands of us making that a more positive word, now think about 2 generations from now, they're not going to know it's a negative word. It's just we've been taught that it's negative.
Hopefully, yeah. I mean, it's a great goal to have and to work on for sure, 100%. And we got to start yesterday. And we can't start today. We can't start tomorrow. We're behind the power curve on a real,
What do you guys think about that, Eric? Erica, why don't you guys chime in? What do you guys think about all that?
I mean, I agree with that. I think that, we have the mental side, the emotional side, the physical side, all of those things, they're a part of who we are. So it is just trying to change in the game. We need to share our stories. We need to not only share our stories, we need to advocate, we need to educate, and let people know that it's okay. Because when we share our stories, it opens up, it's such a lonely place to be when you're going through things. And you always feel like you're the only one going through it, right? No matter what you're going through, you always feel like it's just you. And if we don't, so if we don't come out and advocate and educate, it's powerful. Like for me, like sharing my journey and my story, it's cathartic to me. It's like, it's empowering now to share which at one point in time, I would have been too embarrassed to share. You know, nobody wants to talk about those things. Nobody wants to talk about domestic violence or trauma. You know, nobody wants to talk about anxiety and depression because there's been such a negative connotation to it. But, you know, the more that we share those stories, you know, the more we empower people to feel like, hey, it's not just me. Like, okay, I can talk about this. And if I can talk about this, then I can move on. I can move past this. Look at this person. Look at what they're doing. You know what I'm saying? They're empowered. You know what I'm saying? And so when we start having these hard discussions, we break that stigma. And so it's all about educating and empowering. And that's why we, as, you know, whether it's, you know, you're a provider, a trainer, a coach, whatever it is, you know, like we need to set the tone as well, you know, to know that, hey, it's okay to talk to us. Like, what are you going through? You know, it's not just you. And if people just need to know that somebody cares.
Yes.
That I've been there, or I've been through something just as hard, you know, or just as challenging. And guess what? I'm still here. We're still here. Yes. And there's tools, there's things that we can do. You know, you're not stuck on an island by yourself. And that oftentimes that's just what we feel like. So if we could just change that stigma and have these hard conversations and share these stories, we empower people to keep going. And we empower people to know that there's tools out there that can get you to that other side, that healing side of things and things like that. So
that sounds powerful. A lot like peer-to-peer counseling.
Imagine that.
Which, by the way, I'm a huge proponent of. Huge fan. Huge. I've found more success as a pseudo counselor, if you will, with peer-to-peer counseling with individuals than I have seen them progress with just getting pills thrown down their throat. We got to talk about it. We got to get it off our chest. The more we talk about it, the better you're going to feel. I guarantee it.
Yeah, for sure. Derek, go ahead and chime in.
When we deal with these things. No, y'all are doing such a great job. I'm loving it. I'm literally taking notes. I love it.
That's good.
No, when we deal with these things in isolation, that's how the enemy wins. Those events become our identity when we keep them in the dark. That's where bacteria, that's where things grow, right in the dark. When you bring them to light. And there was a note in the chat here that and we keep coming back to the cup, and you know, eventually our cup's gonna run over. Like it's going to. It's a matter of what we're putting in ourselves, right? You can't get something out of yourself which isn't first put into yourself. So my pastor will say something like taking a brand new sealed water bottle and opening it and expecting to get engine oil out when there's nothing else in there but water. Like you just it just can't happen, right? And Doc and Dr. Erica, that's part of what I'm thinking about as y'all speak is the word hope keeps coming up. We have to provide hope for one another. Sometimes that's it, when you're in the midst of the storm, that's all you can see is the storm. I think I've probably told you this recently, Jay, is sometimes, you know, I think about the disciples had Jesus in the bow of the boat, and they still lost faith, right? Peter was out walking on the water with Jesus, and he lost faith, right? And then we wonder, like, oh my gosh, I'm alone in this. I'm the only person that's ever experienced this, like this loss of faith, loss of hope. So community is so important when it comes to that. Like, who are you surrounding yourself? What are they pouring into you? Because it affects all of us.
What you just said, I hope people heard that. Other people pouring into you. If that's not the case, you might want to re-examine your people, right? Like, and I had to learn that, you know, if I'm only surrounded by people who are pulling from me, and of course kids don't count because that's what they do. But if your core people, if all those people are doing is pulling from you and taking from you, that's a problem. That is a problem.
I say I find myself asking people to define the word friend for me. because it comes up often. We're interrelational beings. We're not meant to do this in isolation. You can't be, for myself, I can't be a Christian alone in my house.
Right.
It may be safe, it may be comfortable, but there's not going to, you can't do it that way. So.
Yeah, you can't have those conversations. You got to have that community. I mean, that's literally what we're building here too. It's like we're building this community because none of us are alone, and I talk about this outwardly when I tell my story now, because I mean, when I first came to Convene, I didn't know how to share my story. There was so much, right? And I was like, I don't even know where to start, right? And so it took, Matt, working with him, and he really helped me kind of learn how to share my story, because I didn't know how to do it. And I didn't really want to be honest, right? There was a lot of things that we have that shame, that guilt, right? Like, I don't really want to share this. I don't want anybody to know this, right? And what I had to learn is I've seen it now so much. And that's why when I come in contact with people that have these massive stories, I'm like, you should be coaching people too, right? Like, because we get to be that hope, like you said, that hope, right? Like, I had this conversation with someone who isn't the most spiritual being, but we ended up, this was like a couple years ago, we were talking about Noah's Ark, and this person was like, it doesn't make any sense to me, right? And I was like, well, you're trying to figure out all the details. That gave people hope. And it was like this whole light bulb went off in this person's head. And even when I'm struggling, I get reminded of that. Hey, Noah's Ark. And I'm like, ooh, you're using my words. Thanks. Like, you're using my words against me, but not really against me, more like for me. But it's important, and Erica, you talked about this, sharing our stories. We're giving people hope. And we don't even know it. Nobody's story is any less important than the next person. And I had to learn that too. Like Derek and I talked a lot about imposter syndrome. And yeah, I think we've all probably experienced that, right? Like, who am I to do what I do, right? And you were talking about like the personal trainer in the gym. I actually told someone today, I was like, that's why I'm not doing that anymore, because it limited me in having these deeper conversations. I want to have the deeper conversations,
Is there any comic book fans here? Specifically Superman?
I mean, I watched the movie.
So
I'm familiar.
Interesting. I'm not really into comic books, but I did find this little tidbit very fascinating. The S that he wears on his chest, it doesn't stand for Superman. It's his planet's symbol for hope. And I think that's very important to take that away. We should all be wearing that S.
I never knew that, Doc.
Huh. Should all be wearing that S on our chest.
Wow.
I like that.
Wow.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, I call Erica a super mom. One day y'all really hear her story. She's been kind of humble tonight, but
potentially at the conference.
Yeah, we'll get. Look, I'm gonna bring all my people. Come on. It's
the best cult you'll ever be a part of. I guarantee.
Yeah, right. The best cult. Biggest sense. See, that's a negative word, Doc. We're talking about negative words.
I'm doing my part to bring it into the positive.
All right, I see what you did there.
It might be more acceptable than mental health, though. Still, so.
That's true. Oh, very true.
Oh man, we got to change the narrative.
Don't judge me or the voices in my head. All right.
Right. Shoot, we all have them. It's okay. I was reading some of the comments. We talk about the empty cup, and I had this conversation where it was like, you're still trying to pour from that cup that has nothing in it, right? You got to fill it up first. And I did that for so many years, right? I think we all have, where it's like, we just pour and pour and pour, and there's literally nothing coming out. We just don't know it. We're running on fumes, but we just keep trying to go and keep trying to pour. And then we wonder why we get depressed and why we're, having, like you said, Erica, the panic attacks, right? Like, that's why.
That's true.
We got to stop it's like, we got to stop the madness.
You know, if there's no gas in the tank, the car's not going to run.
Sounds like what I say when I do my nutrition workshops. We won't. That's a whole nother topic, you guys.
Yeah,
But
don't get me started throwing out statistics on that.
We're not even gonna go there. That's a whole nother podcast. Like, that'll be later. But it's so true. And then what Amy says, she said, kindness starts with yourself. Yeah, I say this all the time. I'm like, why is it? And this is here. I'm gonna throw this question out to you guys because maybe you guys can help me answer this too. And it's something I've had to ask myself, ask all my clients too. Why is it that we will literally keep commitments to everyone else around us who needs us, but we will let ourselves down 99.9999999 lots and lots of nines % of the time?
Well, I'll tell you, for me personally, I'm loyal to a fault. And I have, suffered through the years over that because I can't stand the feeling of letting somebody down at the detriment of letting myself down.
I was going to ask, you're not somebody, Doc? Are you not somebody?
So that's
well, I've
the
been
thing.
called a lot of things. I don't know.
So here's something that I want you guys to respond to that too, Derek and Erica. But here's something that I threw out today, and I said, if you let them down, that's their problem. That means they got some issues they got to work on. They're not seeing your loyalty.
And let's face it, there are a lot of manipulative people in the world, and they will hone in on that like blood in the water. Yeah. And they will take advantage of you over and over again. And I've been victim of that. I hate to say that word, but at least now I have learned to recognize it, and I work on it every day.
Yeah, self-awareness. Derek, what do you think? Like, and you've probably done this too, right? Where it's like you take care of everybody else, and then you're suffering on the inside. What do you think about that?
Yeah, it's kind of that wounded healer thing, and the veteran and the former athlete in me is, just like Yael touched upon, is just push through and persevere and all those words. And I will tell you that I find your struggle, your trial is matched by your triumph. Your level of struggle is matched by the level of resilience gained. Yeah. Right. So over time, we can become pretty strong individuals, depending on, like that we talked about, the loops that we get stuck in, the survival loop or the trauma loop or the whatever. But healing can become a loop. We just have to choose to, not right. And we have to choose to take a posture of healing, and you can't. Eventually, you can, you can keep putting off that oil change, but eventually the engine's going to seize. Right, and we don't want to wait until that happens. So putting those things in place. Myself as a mental health professional, I keep a running meeting with a pastor friend of mine. It's on the schedule every 2 weeks, and I try not to break it, and whether, I'll sometimes, like, oh, this is just a well check, or we're just grabbing coffee or whatever, but it's important to do that, and to have those people around you and those mechanisms in place that'll check you when you're starting to head down a certain path. But those are, our body, we come up with these coping mechanisms, these defense mechanisms. We need to put mechanisms in place on the other side that are going to help us to take the right posture and pursue healing. It's often a matter of perspective, right?
Yeah. What are your thoughts on that, Erica?
For me, the awareness came that I was just repeating cycles.
Yeah.
I saw my mom do it. I saw my grandma do it. I saw other people. I saw people please. I saw that. I didn't have anything else to go by or draw from. So what that did was, I became that people pleaser. I couldn't say no. I couldn't, because I didn't know anything else. But what I recognized is that I wasn't walking in my truth. So the voices that I was hearing about what I should, that wasn't even my truth, you know. And I had to become aware that you're going through this depression, you're going through anxiety, your mental wellness is not, you're not well because you're not even walking in your truth. You're walking in other people that walk before you, and you had nothing else to draw from but seeing people not know, you know, people that didn't have boundaries, people that people please, people that did those things. They were miserable. You know, you said, okay, you know, you committed to do something, but then they're miserable that they committed to do it because they were pouring for something they didn't have.
Right.
You know, so for me, it was cycles, and I had to break that cycle, you know, because not only do I want to be well from, you know, me, I want to be well, but I want my children to do better. I want to set a better example, but then I also want to be able to encourage and empower other people that we have the power to break cycles. We can do that, but we got to be aware that it's a generational thing or environmental thing that we've been exposed to, and that wasn't our truth. So how do we walk in our truth? You know, how do we retrain the brain? Like Doc said, how do we retrain that brain? You know, and like, you know, Derek said, like the loopholes, we can create good cycles. We can create those positive loops, you know. So it's for me, it's just awareness and, you know, learning new coping skills to, you know, to be better.
Yeah. Hey, you guys, I just wanted to say, we got the phone number on there if you want to call in. Also, we're opening it up if you know, we want you to interact. So if you have any questions or any comments, make sure you're posting that on there. We have about 14 minutes left. But this has been a really great conversation and definitely something that is much needed. And it's funny, like you guys are talking about, Derek, you talked about the loopholes, and I say this all the time where I'm like, not only do I go down the rabbit hole, but I create the rabbit hole and then I can go down it, right? Like, and that's that spiraling thing, right? Where you talk about the spirals, and that's why the self-awareness piece is so huge, because there was a time I didn't even know I was creating the rabbit holes. So I'm going down them and I didn't know. But again, that's where your circle comes into play too, right? And I always say this, like Derek, you said you have that mentor, right? And I say coaches need coaches, mentors need mentors, therapists need therapists, right? Like if any of us think so highly of ourselves that we don't need anybody like, around us to help us out, we need to re-examine that real quick, right? Like, because we all need people in our corner, but it's also, you know, we were talking about the survival mode thing where understanding, and Doc, you mentioned the victim word, right? Like we have to get out of that victim mindset. We have to get out of that, because yes, we've encountered things in our lives that have probably set us back, or, you know, been very difficult to get through, but we're still here. We're still standing. And so in all reality, we're victors, not victims, right? So it's up to us to understand that, like, when someone's trying to help us, if they're helping, if we know where their heart is, we know that they're coming from a good place, right? Like if Derek corrects me on something, I might not like it, okay? but I know he's coming from a good place, right? And so I have to, at that point, I have to kind of accept it, even if I don't like it. And I'm not throwing you under the bus, Derek, but maybe I am now. But but I'm that for some people too, right? Like you might not like to hear it, but this is what you need to hear right now.
Well, we got to get back to there because everyone's too worried about offending folks and hurting feelings. Mm-hmm. And we're actually doing some of our brothers and sisters a huge disservice by doing that. Yeah. You know, I know I need to be told when I'm messing up because I might not be seeing it, right? Yeah. I probably have the blinders on. And I would much rather you come to me and correct me than let me continue on to make a fool of myself. Yeah. Also, the other thing I want to bring up is we have discussed a lot of great options and a lot of great tools tonight. And no, it's not easy. It's not easy to deal with the things that we deal with, but it is definitely possible. And, you know, you got to want to do it first. And you got to know that there are so many people around you. We said this, we beat this horse dead. I'm gonna kill it a little bit more, right? But we're not alone. You're not alone, you know? I promise you what you're going through, someone else has gone through it.
Yeah.
Guarantee it.
Yeah.
Although
Well,
we
that's what
can't
I tell
see
people
that.
about Convene. Like I talk about Convene the platform, but I didn't come to Convene just for the platform. Like this is my family. They're my family. They've lifted me up when I didn't have anybody to do that, right? Like they've come alongside me and I get to do that with them too. So it's surrounding yourself by those people who, will say, "Hey, I understand what you're going through. Let me come and support you." Because we've all been the person who people rely on for us to support them, right? But who's looking out for us? So we got to have those people. And I will tell people all the time, I don't necessarily like to ask for help. It's something I'm still a work in progress. It's still something that I struggle with. So that's why it's important for me to have people in my corner who know when I need it. They just know. Like they've known me long enough to where it's like something ain't right. I don't know exactly what it is, right? But so that's important too. I think it's like we can talk about that and we can beat that one up too, is the people that are surrounding us, how important they are.
Well, we're all vets, right? So we all know the importance of doing our buddy checks.
Mm-hmm.
And I tell you, it saves lives.
Yeah.
It saved my life. I had a pistol to my head, and out of the
Yeah.
blue, a buddy of mine called me just to talk. He just kind of
Yeah.
had a feeling something was off. Saved my life, So buddy checks are an integral. And we say buddy checks, we focus that on the military a lot, but it goes to the civilian world as well.
Oh yeah,
Check on your
for sure.
friends. Check on your
Everybody's
family.
struggling with something. It doesn't matter. Nobody is I'm telling everybody, everybody is struggling with something. Doesn't matter who you are, right? None of us are exempt from that. That's the word I was looking for. I was like, none of us are exempt from that. Like we're all going to be struggling. And so it is important to have those people, and thank God for that person who reached out to you in that moment. And this time I'm going to say this real quick is sometimes I don't know who I'm talking to, because I've chosen to use social media platforms for a more positive thing. So I don't always know who I'm talking to, but I will say this, and I share this with a lot of people. When I first started EMDR, and that's the trauma therapy for anybody that doesn't know, and Erica knows what that is because that's how we met. But when I first started that, I don't know why, but I think it was a couple, maybe 2 or 3, maybe 4 weeks into it, something just told me to go on, do a live video. I'm falling apart. I'm a mess. And I do this video and I'm just talking off the dome, right? Because that's what I do. And I had this woman reach out to me, and I get chills every time I think about this, but she reached out to me privately, obviously. And she said, "Thank you for sharing that. I was about to commit suicide today." I didn't even know this woman. So that's, we were talking about sharing your story. We have to share it outwardly. We have to share it publicly. That's why I wanted, Derek to come on here. I wanted Erica to come on here. Like we have to start moving out of our own way, because I didn't like to do it either, but just understanding that we are meant to impact lives on a massive level. And the only way to do that is to utilize the platforms that we have, because we can have one-on-one conversations, but I had a coach a long time ago. He ended up being a mentor of mine. And he said, "Jodi, what's the difference in having a conversation with one person and 10,000? And I said, "Coach, 10,000, right? Like, like that's easy." And he said, "No," he said, "You're the problem." And at first, that when somebody tells you that, you're like, "Wait, what do you mean I'm the problem?" And I hadn't healed. I hadn't gone through my healing journey yet. So I'm feeling attacked at that point. And he said, "You got to remove yourself out of the equation. If you really want to help people, you will utilize what's here. We have these platforms that allow us to have access to millions of people. And you can help, maybe not all millions of them, but you can help some. And if we come together, now we're helping thousands of people together, right?" So that's just something that I think about a lot, and that's why I keep going. It's like I don't ever know who I'm talking to sometimes, but it just takes one.
How many times have you heard in the military, utilize your resources?
Yep.
There's a reason for that.
That is true. Yeah.
I was privileged enough to listen to a panel discussion just yesterday. And one of the panelists was a former victim of human trafficking, and she had experienced substance abuse and all these things. And she said it so perfectly. She said, in regard to community, they showed her the vision that she couldn't see. So she was shooting. That's what she was shooting, for a vision that she couldn't see. She didn't even know it existed. She had no idea. So knowing each other's hearts and knowing where we're coming from and what we've been through, and that's what is so important. We can, show people that healing does happen. It exists. Yeah. There's, our pastor says everyone's either in the middle of a storm, just coming out of a storm, or just walking into a storm. And we don't always know which one it is, but we're in one of those three conditions, And so, but that's community is huge, and hope in one another. And I appreciate y'all having me on tonight.
Well, we appreciate you being here. Erica, do you have any final words that you want to, we're going to wrap this up a little bit.
I think he said it just perfectly. That was great. That was great. We just got to have these conversations, again, we got to just have this, education, and just sharing our stories is huge, and that'll change the narrative.
Yeah. What is one main thing, real quick? What is one main thing that, and for me, I know, like, for self-care, it's one of the things I had to do is I had to stop worrying about everybody else first thing in the morning. So for me, it's getting up early and getting okay here before I go out into the world. But Derek, what's one thing that you make sure you do on a daily basis to help you with your self-care routine?
The first thing I do is I go from my bed when I wake up, and if it's after a certain time, the next thing I do is I hit my knees and I talk to God for a few minutes, and I just check in. And for me, I just had a conversation, right? And I struggle with pride. So I have to ask him that not my will, your will be done. And then also in that, I can reach out to people, and I can surround myself with people that are truly have my best interest at heart, right? I can swallow my pride and talk to people.
Yep. Exactly. What about you, Erica?
So I get up before the kids. I get to talking to God. I write in my journal for a few minutes so I can dump some thoughts. And then I speak kindly to myself. I speak kind words to myself. I affirm so that I'm able to do the same thing when the kids get up. And when I'm surround myself with other people, I affirm them and I speak kindly to them. But I have to show myself grace first so that I can show grace to everybody else. So
yes, definitely. Well, I appreciate you guys for that. And real quick, you guys, for anybody out there watching, Doc put the donut. Why am I thinking about donuts right now? Donate. But I'm a nutritionist, you guys, I promise. Donate button on there. He does this out of the kindness of his heart, and we appreciate him for it. So if you guys can, make sure you click on that QR code up there, and, even if you got $1, every dollar counts, right? So,
yeah, just $1 or $2 here and there. It really helps make things go smooth.
That's how we keep this going, and we do appreciate your time for this, Doc. We really do.
Of course, my pleasure.
I appreciate everyone's time. Thank you guys for coming on here. I'm sure we'll have many conversations again in the future, and yeah, because I always tell people once you're stuck with me, you're stuck with me. Sorry, sorry, not sorry.
Well, I'd like to thank Jodi Watkins for hosting the. Well, I mean, you said you were stuck with you. It's like luggage. Just saying.
I was like, where is he going with this one?
Look, that's one thing I've learned about Doc. You never know, and he was medical, so we got to be careful. Right?
You know what? To be fair, I never know, man. It spits out of my. I have zero filter. I can't control it.
I love it. That's awesome.
That's why I'm on mute most of the time.
I've never had that nickname, so.
Stand by. I got like 3 or 4 more loaded in the chamber waiting for you.
Oh, God.
But hey, I would really, really like to thank our 2 esteemed guests for coming on today. It was a great conversation. I think maybe some healing took place tonight. I'm just going to go out on a limb. But thank you, everyone, for participating. Thank you for everyone for joining in the chat room. And hey, we'll see you guys next week.
Yes.
Good night.